So let's just do a few introductions so you know who the hell I am, and then we'll get into playing with Lego. I usually like to get to Lego as soon as possible, so let's get started. So who I am. So as I said, my name's Michael. I'm a facilitator of many years here in Melbourne. So as a trainer, leadership development, change management. So I know a little bit about group dynamics. I am a certified Lego Serious Play facilitator. So that is something you can become and get on your resume. How cool is that? I'm also the founder of two companies. One's called the LSP Academy, which trains people in this technique that we're about to learn about. And the other one's called Pivotal Play, where I go into companies to do this technique and to make them more creative and to solve some problems. So that's a little bit about me, but we're not here to talk about me, and we're actually not even here to talk about Lego. We're here to talk about the sad case of meetings and workshops in our business life. So I'm sure you're all familiar with that scenario. We've been doing this sort of meeting and this sort of gathering of people for centuries. We've got a problem, and what do? We gather together some smart minds. We put them in a room, and with the best of intentions, we try and get a great outcome. So how does that all work out? You have a few smiles. Let's just go through a typical meeting, a typical workshop that we've got a problem. So we've got 15 people in the room, and what happens? So research tells us that we all have a thinking preference, a working preference, a learning preference. You can break it down into the whole visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So some of us like to hear things. Some of us like to see things. Some of us like to play with things. So in a typical meeting of 15 people, what do we normally do? It's an absolute talk fest. So it's auditory. All we do is we talk, we listen. So what have we done to the kinesthetic people? What have we done to the people that like to touch and feel and play? We diminish their output. They get bored, they get disengaged. And what have we done? In that room, we've lost a good chunk of people. Those 5, kinesthetic, because usually there's about a third break. So third visual, third auditory, third kinesthetic. So 5 people are already diminished. They're not really inputting into the workshop and to the problem. Now, what about the visual people? Okay, so you've got some fancy PowerPoint slides like I've got up there. Maybe you cater to a couple of the visual people. Some of the other visual people, they're a little bit disengaged. So what do? We lose a couple more people. Let's think about it from a different dimension. Introversion versus extroversion. In that room, we've got about 50% introverts, 50% extroverts. You think in a room full of 15 people, those introverts are really going to be maximizing their input? No, they're not going to be speaking up. They may have great ideas, but what happens? They don't get heard. So out of the 8 people that are left, what do? We knock out another 4, the introverts. Quiet. In terms of their input. So what are we left with? We're left with 4 people. Let's look at another dimension. We've got analytical people in the room. We've got creative people in the room. Say, again, a 50-50 split. I would argue that in business, we're definitely skewed towards analytics, facts. Can you prove something? So what happens? We knock the creative people out, those 2. And what are you left with? You're left with these 2 dudes. And what happens? You all know this. You all intuitively have been in these meetings where these 2 dudes are the ones that drive the agenda, their ideas get heard, their problems get solved, their solutions are the ones that you come up with. So what you've done, you've gone from 15 people down to 2. And what do you think that does to the solution to these wicked problems that we're trying to solve? It's obviously suboptimal. So that's the problem. What can we actually do about it? The format that we're currently having meetings in is causing us problems. So what do? We change the format. We add a little bit of Lego. So that's what you're going to experience today, adding a little bit of Lego and changing the format. So 3 things I want to do today for this session. I want you to experience Lego Serious Play, and not just about building with Lego, but what Lego Serious Play really is about. I want you to learn about who uses it and why. And I want you to think about how you could use it, both personally and in your business. So those are 3 things that we want to touch on today. But what is Lego Serious Play? It's not just playing with Lego. There's a structure, there's a format to it. And what that does, it brings the playful elements, it brings the creative types, it brings the kinesthetic people, it brings those introverts into that conversation. So it's a small group method, and that's why we've got you in small groups. And it's designed to get you thinking more creatively and coming up with better solutions. All right, so who uses it? Well, it's used around the world, so not just here in Australia. In fact, it's not used in Australia here that much. I'm trying to change. Lots of different companies. So there's some up there. Here in Australia, I've worked with companies like Telstra and EY and KPMG and Australia Post. Big ones, but small ones as well. So small digital agencies. They're all looking for a different format to get different ideas, different solutions, different motivations from their people. It's used for a lot of different things. So originally it was designed by Lego to do with strategy. So Lego were, I don't know if you know, but they were almost technically insolvent back in the early 2000s. And they were looking for a new way to do strategy. And they came up with Lego Serious Play. Now it's moved on from then to innovation workshops, to UX design, to research, to team development. Any time that you want to have a really deep conversation and you need input from everyone, Lego Serious Play could be the technique for you. Now, why do they use it? Because it's very engaging. We'll talk about play and how people can just dive into it, and you'll get to experience that. It's very creative. It comes up with different solutions, and it's very collaborative. All right. So enough talking from me. That's who uses it. That's why they use it. Let's get into actually what Lego Serious Play is and get you building with Lego, although we seem to have already started down here. Fantastic. So there's 4 key steps to Lego Serious Play. The first one is I'm going to ask you in a minute a question. Very simple question. Then you're going to build your answer to that question in Lego. So you have 5 minutes to do it. We'll get some funky music playing from our DJ, and you'll get to build your answer to that question in Lego. The third step is you get to share it. So that's why we've got you in groups of 6. You'll get to share the story of your model, which is your answer to that question. And then lastly, just because it's awesome, we get to capture that information. So step 4 is capture. So if you haven't got your phone out already, I encourage you to get your phone out. It's not normally something I like to do in a workshop, but I want you to get your phone out and I want you to get ready to take some photos. So those are the 4 key steps to Lego Serious Play. But just before we launch into building with Lego, there's a couple of tips that I've found from doing these workshops over the last 4 years. The first one is, what happens? We've got smart, creative people in this room. I'm going to ask you a question. What do? You sit, you think, you ponder, you come up with an answer, and all that takes time. So that's totally the wrong approach when you're faced with a pile of Lego. What you want to do is not have a meeting with yourself and get started. So just build. As soon as I ask that question, just build. And the last one is I want you to think in metaphor and I want you to think in story. So in terms of story, let me pick out my favorite brick. Where can I find it? Here it is. So we all know with Lego that you can build literal things. So we had a car over here. You can build castles. You can build pirate ships. That's not what today is about. What today is about metaphor and it's about story. So I've chose this particular brick here. It's a little black brick. It's a cool funky one with knobbly bits on the sides. The reason I remember this brick is because I was doing a workshop with some people who were running a project for the Asylum Resource Centre. And they had built these wonderful models of all the stakeholders involved in their project. So they had the asylum seeker, they had the resource centre, they had the government, they had the people who donate to this whole situation. So they had all the people out, and then this person grabbed this brick and they said, this brick is fear. And this is how this brick connects to every single one of these stakeholders. The government's fearful, the asylum seeker's fearful, the people who are donating are fearful. So this brick became fear. They said it was fear, and we believed them. So that's where I want to get you today. The brick can be whatever you want. You've got an elephant there. It doesn't have to be an elephant. This brick can be whatever you want. Whatever you build, bring the meaning that you want to it. Think in metaphor. And of course, think in story. We all know how we're connected to stories, and what we want to do is to tell some stories today. So enough about all of that because you want to get building. So first step, we need to get you practicing with Lego. So it's called skills building. I want you to build a tower with you in it. Not physically, but something representing you in it. So build a tower with you in it. You have 3 minutes. We're going to play some music, get to some Lego. Individually, build a tower with you in it. And remember, don't have a meeting with yourself. Don't think, I need to build the perfect tower. Just build. And for those of you up the back, if you want, come down. We've got more Lego. Jump in a group somewhere. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Hi guys. If you're here to meet the experts, we've got some fantastic people up the back. There's been a couple of people who haven't shown to appointments, so if you're interested in jumping in there and having a chat, the experts are mostly the keynote speakers that are going to be presenting throughout this conference. So it's a fantastic opportunity to have a chat with an expert. So even if you haven't booked, just go up the back and have a chat to one of the ushers and they'll let you slot into a session if they're available. But there's been a few no-shows, so I would just roll up if you want to have a chat to somebody and go for it. Thanks, guys.
All right, so I'm seeing some great towers being built. If I get you to finish up your build, so put that final touch to it, and then we're going to take you through what the next step is. It's usually at this point that someone tries to put that extra piece on and the whole thing comes tumbling down, but that's okay, because you can always rebuild it. That's the good thing about Lego. All right, so let's just have a bit of a recap of where we're at. Everyone's built these beautiful towers. A couple of groups over here have gone slightly rogue and they actually built one together. It's a whole collaborative thing, so we're going to talk about that soon. But let's have a check-in about where we are in these 4 key steps. So I asked you a question about building a tower with you in it. You did the build, so you spent a few minutes building your tower, and now to step 3, which is about sharing your story of that tower. So what I want you to do in your groups, I want you to go around and individually just say a little bit about your tower. Tell the story of the tower. And I'm going to give you only 1 minute each to do that. So whip around, tell as much as you can about why you built that tower, where you are in it, and go around and make sure everyone gets a chance to share the story of their tower. Go for it. I'll just give you another minute. Make sure everyone has the chance to tell the story of their tower. Just one more minute to share that. All right. Any group need any more time? Seems like everyone's shared the story of their tower. Fantastic. All right, so that was step 3. Just to finish that step off, any similarities, differences you can see in the towers that were built on your table? So have a bit of a chat. Are there any similar type towers? Any different ones? The stories that were told? See if you can pick out any themes from your table. All right, so that was step 3. You guys got to share the story of your tower. Let's move on to step 4 now. So again, remember we're just doing this skills building. We're practicing Lego Serious Play. We haven't really got into the meaty questions just yet. But what I want you to do is go on to step 4. So I want you to get your phone out and I want you to capture your model and maybe even write a few words down, something just to capture that story of your model so that when you're looking back in a week's time, you're like, what the hell is that about? Lego, that story. It's just something about your tower. And feel free if you want to send it out to the big wide world, tweet it out, whatever kids are doing these days. All right, so once you've captured your tower, what I want you to do now is I want you to dismantle it. I want you to take your bricks and I want you to put them back into the mix. So how did you feel doing that? We've got some people that are dismantling their bricks and I heard a couple of cries of anguish. It's interesting. Some people are they're very comfortable with that. They are happy to just, in the destruction phase, take that tower and dismantle it. And some people, they get a bit sad. I heard a couple of cries over here about their towers. And what you start to realize is these artifacts that we create out of ourselves, that's what those Lego models are. They're these little pieces of your brain that you're putting on the table to share with people. We invest a lot in them. So some people get quite attached to them. And when you do, you start to see the power of them. You start to invest more in them. And it's a bit of a part of you out in the world. So, you've done a little bit of Lego Serious Play. You're starting to warm up a little bit. Let's get to the real questions. So I want you, what's the biggest challenge that you face in your career at the moment? I want you to think about that. And remember, don't think about it too much. You don't want to have a meeting with yourself. But I want you to build a model that represents the biggest challenge that you're facing in your career at the moment. This time I'm going to get you a little longer. You're going to have 4, maybe 5 minutes to do it. But what's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your career? This guy's laughing over here. He's like, oh my God, which one do I choose? Choose one, the biggest one, and just start building. Don't have a meeting with yourself, just get to it. I'm going to give you 4 minutes, we'll get the DJ to play some more music, and then we'll see how we go. Biggest challenge you face in your career. Go for it.
It's on. Test, test, test.
Yeah, cool.